Hi, Science 20s. This is Mr. Riley here again with another little physics review lesson. We're going to look at some metric unit conversions here. In your data booklet, which I hope you guys have, you will find on page 1 this handy dandy chart right here that says units and prefixes. There's all the metric prefixes there that you could think of. We really are only going to use probably these 4. And I'm going to show you a little trick for converting your units. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'm going to show you one trick that I like to use called unit analysis. So first thing we're going to do is, look here at the common base units. Our base unit is going to be, let's say, meters. I'll just put meters here. So let's say we have meters. 1,000 of that base unit are going to get the prefix K for kilo. You're going to get kilometers. 1/100th of a meter is a centimeter, and 1/1000th of a meter is a millimeter. And we're talking meters. We can use all kinds of different things in the metric system. If you're doing science in Canada, you're using the metric system. You're using the metric system for everything except for if you're measuring your height or your oven temperature. And with this, there's a couple things I want us to sort of maybe try to remember or be able to pull out of this chart. Is that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. Okay. 100 centimeters is equal to 1 meter, and 1,000 millimeters is equal to 1 meter. So if we can remember those 3 things, we're probably going to be okay here. So let's look at a couple examples of this unit analysis. So I got a couple examples here. So example number 1, how many meters is 57.2 centimeters? So one thing that I can do is I can take my 57.2 and I can multiply it by a conversion factor. This would have whatever unit I want going on the top. So that would be my meters. And whatever unit I am looking for, whichever unit I already have, will go on the bottom. And then I'm going to put a 1 by the unit that's bigger. So my bigger unit here is meters. And I got to remember that factor. How many centimeters in a meter? So I can go back and look at my chart. I know it's 100 centimeters in a meter. So this tells me what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 57.2, multiply it by 1, and then divide by 100. Or I can just think of it as 57.2 divided by 100. And I would get 0.572 meters. So 57.2 centimeters is equivalent to 0.572 meters. Okay, so let's look at this one. And I guess another thing to look at here is canceling of the units. That's why we do this analysis. This centimeters, this is on top. This centimeters is on the bottom. They're going to cancel each other out. I'm going to be left with meters, which becomes my unit. How many kilometers is 4,500 meters? So in this case, I'm going to take my 4,500 meters, and the unit I want is kilometers. The unit I have is meters. The bigger unit is kilometers, so I'm going to put a 1 next to my kilometer, and I have to remember what's equivalent to 1 kilometer in meters, and that is 1,000. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I am going to divide by 1,000. Okay, meters are going to cancel. So 4,500 divided by 1,000 is going to give me 4.5 kilometers. Okay. Now I know you guys did some practice with this in class. Again, this is review. Okay, so here's another thing we want to look at here that we're going to have to do, and that is converting velocity. So going from, speed limits that we see on the road, speedometers in cars, they're in kilometers per hour. But in physics, we often want to use meters per second to do our calculations. So we have to be able to convert between those two. I'll show you this trick. So If I have 60 kilometers per hour, what is that in meters per second? So I'm going to take my 60 kilometers per hour, and I'm going to multiply this by a couple of conversion factors. I need to do two things here. I need to change kilometers into meters, and I need to change hours into seconds. And so let's focus on the kilometers to meters first, because we know how to do that one. Okay. Now in this case, I want to end up with meters on top. So I want meters. I have kilometers. Okay. 1 kilometer is equivalent to 1,000 meters. Okay. Kilometers in this case will cancel. So if I was to just do this calculation, I would get meters per hour. So I need to change my hours to seconds. So what I need to do is I want to get seconds on the bottom. So I'm going to put seconds down here and hours up here. Now, I need to know an equivalency here. How many seconds are in 1 hour? So I actually have that in my data booklet. If I look back up here on page 1, this information right here tells me that 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. So I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to put my 3,600 seconds in there. And as we see, hours are going to cancel out, and I'm going to end up with meters over seconds. So once I put this into my calculator, I'm going to take 60. I'm going to times that by 1,000. And I'm going to divide that answer by 3,600. And I get 16.6 repeating. So I get 16.67 meters per second. Okay. Now there is a little trick to this that I'm going to tell you guys, and that is that you can shorten this up by dividing by 3.6. If I multiply something by 1,000 and then divide by 3,600, it is the same thing as dividing by 3.6. Your meter per second number is always going to be lower than your kilometers per hour number. So that's kind of the trick to remember whether to divide or multiply. So I want you guys to try one here. So pause the video and see if you can do this question here. Okay, pause it, and try this one. Okay, so hopefully you have an answer now. So I'm going to take this 100 kilometers per hour and put it into a unit conversion. Okay, I'm going to change my kilometers into meters. So 1 kilometer is equivalent to 1,000 meters. And I'm going to change my hours into seconds. And I know 1 hour is equivalent to 3,600 seconds. Hours are now canceled. So I'm going to take 100 times 1,000 divided by 3,600. Or I can just cheat and do 100 divided by 3.6. And I'm going to get 27.7 repeating, or let's say 27.78 meters per second. Okay, so if you're going from kilometers per hour to meters per second, you can divide by 3.6. And if you want to go the other way, if you want to go from meters per second to kilometers per hour, you can multiply by 3.6. So a little shortcut there, but I think it's important that we see where the shortcut comes from. Okay, hopefully that helps you guys out. I'll see you next time.